What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, thousands of people around the world are waking up in the wrong universe? Not metaphorically, literally. They go to sleep in one reality and wake up in another where their bedsheets are different, their boyfriend never existed, and their entire life has shifted just enough to make them question their sanity. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a Netflix series. This is happening to real people, with real names, in real places, and by the end of this video, you might realize it's already happened to you. You're not alone in this terrifying experience. Over the past decade, thousands of people have reported identical symptoms, waking up in a world that looks exactly like theirs, but with subtle, undeniable differences that make their skin crawl. They remember things that apparently never happened. They search for people who apparently never existed. They find themselves living in homes they don't remember moving to, working jobs they don't remember taking, married to people they've never seen before. The psychological impact is devastating. Most suffer in silence, afraid of being labeled as mentally ill. But here's what makes this phenomenon absolutely chilling. The consistency of their reports is impossible to ignore. Let me tell you about Lerina Garcia Gordo, July 16, 2008, Madrid, Spain. This 41-year-old professional woman posted a desperate plea for help on an online forum, a post that would become one of the most documented cases of parallel universe displacement ever recorded. Lerina woke up that morning in what she described as a world that looked identical to hers, but wasn't hers. The first thing she noticed were her bed sheets. They were completely different from the ones she remembered going to sleep on. Not similar, not faded. Completely different patterns and colors she had never seen before. But that was just the beginning of her nightmare. 6 months earlier, she had ended a 7-year relationship with her boyfriend. She distinctly remembered the painful breakup, the arguments, the final goodbye. But in this new reality, that relationship had never ended. Her ex-boyfriend, who should have been out of her life, was somehow still involved, still calling her, still acting as if nothing had changed. Meanwhile, a new man she had been dating for months, someone she had deep feelings for, had completely vanished. Not just from her life, but from existence itself. No trace of him anywhere. No mutual friends had ever heard his name. No record of their dates, their conversations, their connection. Lerina meticulously checked every detail of her life. Her apartment was the same address, but subtle details were wrong. Pictures she remembered taking were missing. Books she owned were different editions. Even her work environment had shifted. Colleagues she worked with daily acted as if certain projects had never existed, while referencing meetings and decisions she had never been part of. The psychological impact was devastating. She began documenting everything, desperately searching for someone, anyone, who might have experienced something similar. Her case gained international attention not because of its sensational nature, but because of how meticulously she documented the differences and how rationally she approached the impossible situation she found herself in. This wasn't someone having a psychotic break. This was an educated, professional woman methodically documenting a phenomenon that challenged everything we know about reality. But Lerina isn't alone. In 1979, 2 British couples were driving through rural France when they experienced what researchers now classify as a temporal displacement event. They stopped at a hotel that seemed frozen in time, with decor and amenities from decades earlier. The staff dressed in period clothing, the food was prepared using ancient methods, and the prices were impossibly low. They took photographs, kept receipts, and made detailed notes about their experience. The next morning, they decided to return to this fascinating place. But when they drove back to the exact location, using the same route, the hotel had vanished. Not closed, not demolished. It had never existed. The photographs they took showed nothing but an empty field. Local authorities confirmed no hotel had ever operated in that location. Historical records showed no evidence of any such establishment ever existing in the area. Yet these four people, all credible witnesses with no history of mental illness or substance abuse, shared identical memories of a night that apparently never happened in a place that apparently never existed. They passed psychological evaluations, polygraph tests, and psychiatric assessments. Their story remained consistent across decades of interviews. Then there's the case of Andrew Carlson, which surfaced in 2003. This mysterious figure appeared to possess impossible knowledge of future stock market movements, making 126 consecutive high-risk trades with a 100% success rate. When federal investigators arrested him for insider trading, his explanation was even more impossible than his trading record. He claimed to be from the year 2256, accidentally transported to our timeline through a temporal anomaly. What made investigators take notice wasn't his outlandish claim, but his detailed knowledge of future events that later proved accurate, and his complete lack of any documented existence before appearing in the financial markets. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like something was fundamentally wrong, but you couldn't put your finger on what? Have you ever had a vivid memory of an event that others swear never happened? Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you were seeing a stranger, even though the reflection was obviously you? Most of us dismiss these moments as tricks of memory, fatigue, or stress. But what if they're not? What if they're glimpses of the reality-shifting phenomenon that researchers are beginning to take seriously? The scientific community has struggled to explain these experiences through conventional means. Sleep disorders can cause disorientation, but they don't create false memories with such specific, verifiable details. Dissociative disorders can alter perception, but they don't change physical objects like bedsheets and photographs. False memory syndrome can implant non-existent recollections, but it doesn't make real people vanish from existence while leaving behind traces of their presence. Memory researchers at major universities have studied hundreds of these cases, expecting to find patterns consistent with known psychological phenomena. Instead, they've found something far more disturbing. These experiences don't fit any established psychological profile. The people reporting them show no signs of mental illness, no history of substance abuse, no indicators of attention-seeking behavior. They're ordinary people living ordinary lives until the moment their reality shifts without warning. Dr. Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist at City College of New York, has suggested that these experiences might be evidence of quantum consciousness interacting with parallel realities. According to quantum mechanics, every decision creates a branching point where all possible outcomes occur simultaneously in parallel universes. Most of the time, our consciousness remains locked in one timeline. But what if, under certain conditions, our awareness can slip between these parallel realities? The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III, suggests that every quantum measurement causes the universe to split into multiple realities. In one reality, you wore a blue shirt today. In another, you wore red. In yet another, you didn't get dressed at all because you never woke up. These realities exist simultaneously, separated by quantum barriers that normally prevent any interaction between them. But quantum barriers aren't impermeable. Quantum tunneling allows particles to pass through energy barriers that should be impossible to cross. If consciousness operates on a quantum level, as some researchers suggest, then perhaps under specific conditions, our awareness can tunnel through these barriers, briefly accessing memories and experiences from parallel versions of ourselves. This theory gains credibility when we examine the consistency of reported experiences. People don't report waking up as different genders, different ages, or in completely foreign environments. The changes are always subtle, always plausible, always within the range of decisions they could have made differently. It's as if their consciousness has shifted to the reality where they made slightly different choices. Consider the psychological profile of people reporting these experiences. They're typically intelligent, observant individuals with strong attention to detail. They notice small changes that others might overlook. They have excellent memory for personal details and life events. These are exactly the qualities that would make someone aware if their reality had shifted. Perhaps these experiences are more common than we realize, but most people simply aren't observant enough to notice when they slip between parallel worlds. The simulation hypothesis, popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, offers another possible explanation. If our reality is indeed a sophisticated simulation, then glitches in the program could cause people to briefly experience alternate versions of their simulated lives. These wouldn't be parallel universes in the traditional sense, but different versions of the simulation running simultaneously. A processing error could temporarily connect someone's consciousness to the wrong version of their life. This theory is supported by the digital nature of many reported anomalies. People notice changes in photographs, text messages, and digital records, the very elements that would be most susceptible to simulation glitches. They don't typically report changes in fundamental physical laws or impossible biological alterations. The changes are always within the parameters of what a simulation might realistically alter without breaking its basic programming. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that these reality shifts are being caused by external intervention. Some researchers have proposed that advanced beings or future humans might be conducting experiments on consciousness and timeline manipulation. These beings could be testing our ability to adapt to reality changes, studying how human consciousness responds to temporal displacement, or conducting psychological experiments on an unprecedented scale. This theory is supported by the seemingly random nature of who experiences these phenomena. There's no clear pattern based on age, location, profession, or psychological profile. It's as if subjects are being selected for experimentation based on criteria we don't understand. The experiences often occur during periods of high stress or emotional transition, times when the subject's psychological state might be most malleable, or when the results of the experiment would be most revealing. Throughout history, cultures around the world have recognized the possibility of reality shifting. Ancient Hindu texts describe multiple levels of reality existing simultaneously. Norse mythology speaks of the world tree connecting different realms of existence. Aboriginal Australians have the concept of dream time, where different timelines intersect and influence each other. Native American traditions include stories of people slipping between worlds during vision quests or spiritual ceremonies. These weren't primitive misunderstandings of natural phenomena. These were sophisticated attempts to describe experiences that our modern scientific paradigm struggles to explain. Perhaps ancient cultures, with their different relationship to consciousness and reality, were more attuned to these phenomena. Perhaps our technological society has actually made us less aware of the fluid nature of reality, not more aware. Celtic folklore is rich with stories of people accidentally wandering into the other world, spending what feels like hours or days in a parallel realm, only to return and discover that years have passed in their original reality. These stories follow remarkably consistent patterns that mirror modern accounts of time slips and reality shifts. The details change, but the fundamental experience remains the same across cultures and centuries. Japanese folklore includes the concept of kamikakushi, where people disappear into spirit worlds and return with memories of impossible experiences. Chinese philosophy has long recognized the multiplicity of reality through concepts like the 10,000 things and the fluid nature of existence described in Taoist teachings. These weren't metaphors. They were attempts to describe literal experiences of consciousness moving between different states of reality. The consistency of these accounts across time and culture suggests that reality shifting might be a fundamental aspect of consciousness that we've forgotten how to recognize and interpret. Modern psychology tends to pathologize these experiences, but perhaps they're actually normal variations in human consciousness that we've lost the framework to understand. So what does all this mean? Are we living in a multiverse where consciousness can slip between parallel realities? Are we experiencing glitches in a vast simulation? Are we the subjects of experiments conducted by beings we can't comprehend? Or is there an even more radical explanation that we haven't discovered yet? The evidence suggests that reality is far more fluid and subjective than we've been taught to believe. The boundaries between possible and impossible, between real and unreal, between self and other, might be much more permeable than our scientific paradigm acknowledges. These experiences force us to confront the possibility that consciousness itself might be the fundamental force that shapes reality, not the other way around. What's most disturbing about these cases isn't their impossibility, it's their plausibility. Each story, taken individually, could be explained away through psychological or neurological means. But taken together, they form a pattern that challenges our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence. They suggest that the reality we experience might be just one of infinite possible realities, and that under certain conditions, we can become aware of the others. If you've made it this far in the video, you're probably questioning your own experiences. You're probably remembering moments when something felt wrong, when reality seemed to shift in subtle ways you couldn't explain. You're probably wondering if that strange feeling you had last Tuesday morning was actually your consciousness, briefly slipping into a parallel timeline where you made different choices. Here's what I want you to do. Look around your room right now. Really look. Notice the details, the position of objects, the colors, the patterns. Take a mental photograph. Now ask yourself, is everything exactly as you remember it being? Are you absolutely certain that the book on your shelf is the same edition it was yesterday? Are you positive that the picture on your wall hasn't changed in some subtle way? Are you sure the person you love most in the world has always existed in your life exactly as they do now? The people sharing their experiences in the comments section of videos like this aren't seeking attention or validation. They're seeking understanding. They're trying to make sense of experiences that don't fit into our accepted model of reality. They're looking for others who have felt that terrifying moment of recognition when the world around them feels like a stage set that's been rearranged while they were sleeping. Share your experience in the comments. Tell us about the moment you realized something had changed, something that couldn't be explained by normal means. Tell us about the people who vanished from your life without explanation, the memories that others don't share, the feeling of being a stranger in your own existence. You're not alone, and you're not crazy. You might be experiencing something that science is only beginning to understand. Keep watching, keep questioning, and remember that reality might be far stranger and more wonderful than any of us have dared to imagine. Subscribe for more investigations into the mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about consciousness, time, and the nature of existence itself. Because if these experiences are real, if consciousness really can slip between parallel realities, then everything we believe about life, death, choice, and consequence needs to be reconsidered. The universe might be far more personal, far more responsive to consciousness, and far more mysterious than we ever dreamed. And you might be living proof of that mystery right now without even realizing it.